Hi, this is Terry, and this is It's About Writing. Today we have, oh, I just want to change this view real quick. Okay. Today we have Johnnie Alexander. She's a published author of a number of books she's going to share with us. And we're just so excited to have you with us, Johnnie. Do you want to just tell us about yourself to start with and what you've written and show us some of your books?
I'd be happy to, Terry. Thank you so much for having me as your guest. I really appreciate it. Wow, the question, like, tell you about yourself is like, I always kind of stumble over that. But I grew up in Ohio, lived most of my adult life in Florida, and now I'm living in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Okay. So I kind of move around. I have friends that joke that they never know exactly where I am because I'm always going from one place to another. Yeah, it's life. But I'm really blessed to be able to write and to create stories. I guess let's just start with the first one. It's probably still my favorite, even after all this time. Where Treasure Hides. Oh. It's a World War II story that sort of juxtaposes the question about what we find most important, protecting children or protecting the art, which were both major issues during World War II, where we had people hiding out children. The statistics are really horrific. About 10% of the children, Jewish children, only about 10% survived World War II, those who lived in the Nazi-occupied countries. So they survived due to people who brought them into their homes, and sometimes the motive was altruistic and Christian, and sometimes it wasn't. So it's really interesting. But then also I got very interested. This was written in 2013, published in 2013, before the movie The Monuments Men came out. But I had read that book and got very interested in the whole art theft of the Nazis just gathering up all the art they could find. So this has a lot to do with that too. So anyway, it's yeah, I love the cover. This is from Tyndale. They did a beautiful job on it, and it's I think for me it just really is probably the deepest book I've written as far as just the themes of it and the angst of it and all of that. And since then I've kind of gotten lighter with my writing, but it has it won a American Christian Fiction Writers Genesis contest before it was published. It won historical category in 2011, and it did make the CBA bestseller list one month, so that was really cool, and it's won a couple other awards, so I'm really proud of this.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, so that was the start of it all. Yeah.
Good way to start.
Yeah. So I thought I would be writing historical fiction, but then, you just never know with the whole, what's going to happen with publishing. So after that, I wrote this series for Revell. This is the first book, Where She Belongs. This is the Misty Willow series. When Love Arrives came second. Yeah, the two. And then What Hope Remembers. And what was really special to me about these stories, this one actually was given Pick of the Month by the Library Journal when it came out, which was really cool. It's based on a house that I used to live in when I was a teenager, a house that had been built in the mid-1800s, a big brick house, and probably had been used for the Underground Railroad at one time. So my family lived there for a while, and after I left home, and then moved, and then the house sat empty for like a decade, and I always wanted to be the one to go back and buy that house, and restore it, but that wasn't in God's plan for me or my life. So I wrote a story where the heroine gets to do that, and she goes back to her family home, and there's just a lot of issues with what had happened and why it was empty for so long, and the feelings that she had about that home being abandoned when she loved it so much, and wanting to give, she's a widow and wanting to give her children the same experiences that she had had as a young girl in that place, thinking if she could get them there, they would all be happy again. Wow. And having to come to terms with the guy who owned the house and hated it. And because to him, it didn't have good memories. So anyway, it's just a great story, very much based in Ohio. It's set in Ohio where I grew up. We talk about a sense of place in this story. It really has that, very rooted, because my childhood, I know this place. And it's very rooted in just what it means to be a Midwestern farmer's girl, I guess.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, that was fun. So what next?
Well, okay, so one thing I was interested in is that you've actually been published in different genres, and many times they tell us don't do that, that's not good for a career. Or can you just tell us a little bit about your journey, how
Sure.
that happened, and
Yeah,
good.
yeah. It's just one of those things where you just you don't have control of things sometimes, and I think it's great for somebody to write in the same genre all the time. They usually can very much establish themselves in that, and it can help lead to success monetarily, having your name recognized by your fans and all that kind of thing. But that just was not the plan that God had for me. I started out writing Where Treasure Hides, this historical, thought I would be writing those. But I had this contemporary manuscript, and it seemed like the pendulum was swinging away from historicals. And so my next contract happened to be for this series of contemporary books. And I only had the one, I had this manuscript actually written before I wrote Where Treasure Hides, did a lot of revisions on it, of course, and all that kind of thing. But they took all three. And then again, it was like, okay, that kind of ended, and I didn't get picked up for another book. So it's like, what am I going to do next? And I wasn't sure, just happened to be talking to my agent on the phone. And she said, have you ever wanted to write a cozy mystery? And I said, well, yeah, I think that would be fun. She had been on vacation. She came back. She had all these emails in her inbox. And a publisher was wanting someone to write cozy fictions or cozy mysteries. So I said yes to that opportunity. And I wrote these two books, Bloom to Die and Pine and Punishment, for Annie's Fiction. So Annie's is you can look it up, anniesfiction.com, very easy. They do a subscription-based distribution. So these books aren't available on Amazon unless you find used copies. Sometimes they are. And they do these different series. So I wrote 2 books. I think there could be as many as 20 in this series. I'm not for sure how many there are.
Oh. And
they all follow the same, a florist who, a woman who's what is she? She was a forensic biologist, and she owned a flower shop. And so there's this little community in Orcas Island, Washington, state of Washington. So that was really cool to research that area and find out about it. And I wrote 2 books for them. And since that time, I've been writing very steadily for Annie's. This book just came out, or is coming out this month. I just got my author copies a couple weeks ago. It's the 3rd book I've written in their Inn at Magnolia Harbor series, which takes place in South Carolina. It's about a bed and breakfast, 2 sisters that own a bed and breakfast. But then you get to write about the guests that come and stay there and the issues that they're having. So it's almost like Fantasy Island in a way, where people come and leave and come and leave. So it's been just a really fun thing to write for them. Also, I've written for Barber. I'm in 3 of their novella collections. So those are all historicals. This was the latest.
Okay.
Homefront Heroines. These are about, there are 4 stories in this collection, and they are all about women who served during World War II here in the United States.
Oh, okay.
That was a lot of fun. Again, all the story titles are song titles from the era. So mine is Blue Moon, and it takes place in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, which is like the secret city where the atomic bombs were being built that ended up being dropped over Pearl Harbor, or not Pearl Harbor, Nagasaki, and in Japan, Russia. So I love writing historicals. You get to do a lot of interesting research and find out all kinds of cool things when you do historicals. So
well, that was great. It's very encouraging because I've been interested to write in several different genres and even different age groups. So it's encouraging to hear that you've been published, and even that your agent encouraged you in that. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to get those calls that just are, you know, what do you think about doing this? And it does now, especially, it just keeps me busy. I just finished a manuscript for Annie's Fiction. I've got 4 more stories to write for them that I'm under contract for different series. And really for me, the key was, it was saying yes to God. So when my agent said, will you write a cozy mystery? I said yes. When she said, will you write an Amish novel, which I never expected to write an Amish novel, I said yes, you know, and I just tried, if God put something in my lap, I'd say yes to it, even though it flew in the face of stick to one genre. So
what steps did you have to take, for example, for that, to write a mystery is different, very different, I would think, than just writing a historical fiction or a contemporary or a romance. So what did you do when you had never written a mystery before? Did you do some research first?
I did, absolutely. I mean, I love mysteries. Like I love Agatha Christie. I love little cozy mysteries. But yeah, I mean, I absolutely looked up how to write a cozy mystery and you know, how you do that. And it's like, okay, you make sure you have at least 3 suspects, you know, you make sure you have what your clues are going to be. And you know, we've talked a little bit, you and I were talking before about methods of writing or writing, you know, processes. With all of the Annie's Fiction books, the publisher requires a chapter outline. So they want to see exactly what the story is going to be. So, you know, just like 6-7 pages, just telling what's going to happen so that they know that you know what the story is going to be. And so just in that process, you know, figuring it is especially good for the cozy mystery. So I knew like who the suspects were, what secrets they have. A cozy mystery, everybody has a secret, you know, so, and then what the red herrings are, and really outline all that. Now, I am not a natural, you know, they call them pantsers and plotters. So for Annie's Fiction, you have to be a plotter. They want to know. And it's such a good way to write a story. But when I'm just writing another story that's not for them, I can't make myself write that outline, and I end up pantsing it more than plotting it. So there are pros and cons to both. The plotting is really great because you have the story. There are still surprises. Things happen you don't expect to happen, which is my favorite part of writing. Characters do things you don't expect. It makes the writing faster because you know where you're going. When you're pantsing, you know, writing by the seat of your pants, you end up doing a lot more revision, I think, because you end up going down some rabbit trails sometimes. And so it just kind of, you're either going to spend more time up front or you're going to spend more time at the back end.
So since you're mostly a pantser, what do you do before you just start writing the first chapter? Do you just start? Or
No, I'm not that far on the spectrum. I usually know, well, lots of times too, to have sold a project, like to have sold, I've got a story coming out from Barber in August, and I'm writing it now, but I had sent them, I knew that they were looking for a certain kind of story, and I had sent them like a 1-page blurb or synopsis or something like that. So you do have to figure out some of those things. I know the characters. I usually know what they want, what's stopping them from getting what they want. And of course, if it's a romance, you have that for both the hero and the heroine and how they're going to come together and resolve in the end. So you might not have the details, but you have some of those questions, you know, that, for example, for that one, the heroine is a code breaker. Her brother died at Pearl Harbor. she's wanting to do something to fill that void, you know, that she's going to do something for the country. He's not there to do it, and she's mourning him. Now that I knew before I started writing. Now that I'm writing it and have done more research into that era, we sometimes forget that the whole Great Depression had happened right before that. And a lot of families, of course, were affected by that. And a lot of the women who became these code breakers, especially for the Navy, had come from homes that had been affected by that. So now I know, which I did not know before, that her father just kind of upped and ran away and disappeared. So she also has that lack in her family, or in, you know, in her life. And I'm not sure yet how that's all going to play out in the story, but there's going to be something there. So we know what she's dealing with, and we kind of know she really wants to solve this assignment that's been given to her about that involves codes and a traitor to the United States. And it's based on a true story, actually. That's what Barbara's doing now with some of these stories. So it's really fun.
Yeah, I do like that, because then you have some basis, you know, some parts that you don't have to work on, that it's already set for you.
Right. Yeah. Usually there's I usually at least have written like a 2 or 3 paragraph blurb. And especially like for the novellas for Barbara, that's what they like. And when they say yes, then you kind of at least have something to go with.
Yeah. Well, that is exciting. Do you have any tips for writers, that just anything about this, like maybe incorporating setting, or maybe writing in multiple genres, or anything you want to give?
If you have an agent, of course, follow your agent's advice. Absolutely. But, you know, I think it's great if you get opportunities to just be open to trying different things, and then maybe you'll find that niche that just pulls you in, and that's the one that takes you, you know, where you want to go. But I've really enjoyed just being able to write different kinds of stories. I suppose my heart still is really with historicals, but I'm loving the contemporaries too, and just the different opportunities. For newer writers, I call them the 3 C's. I really recommend going to writers' conferences, being part of a critique group, and entering contests if you're able to do that. I know that can be a financial burden, and conferences too can be a financial burden, but really those with a critique group, you learn, you're not only getting your work critiqued, but you're learning to critique other people's work, and you're learning, like, this doesn't sound right to me, but you can't just say this doesn't sound right to me. You have to be able to give a reason, and it makes you kind of think through the process and why something doesn't sound right and how it could be better. Yeah. And then with contests, you're getting that feedback from judges, and sometimes it's not what you want to hear, and sometimes you do have to say, well, that's really, that judge didn't know what they were talking about, and they didn't. But usually there's good feedback, and you can get really good feedback on your work. And conferences are a great place to meet other writers, to meet editors, to meet publishers. Of course, there's not a lot of that going on right now while we're kind of shut down, but there's online opportunities. But those are great places just to, I've made some very close friends from going to writers' conferences and being part of that, of our writing community. The inspirational writing community is a fabulous place to be.
I found that too, over the years.
It really is.
Well, thank you so much. We will put up your links, and I know I got your website, and I know you have some author interviews on your website as well. So people can check that out. And where's the best place to go look for your books?
Of course, my website's a good place. It's Johnnie-Alexander.com, a little hyphen in there. And most of them are on Amazon, except like Annie's Fiction. You'd have to go there and subscribe, or maybe hope to find one on Amazon, a used copy. But yeah, Amazon's a really, really good place. I'd like to really quick, I know we don't have a lot more time. I've got 2 short stories in these anthologies with the Mosaic Collection, which is a group of authors I've joined up with to do indie publishing. So I'm, stepping into those waters as well. So this is Before Summer's End, Stories to Touch the Soul, and there's several authors who contributed to it. And this one was our Christmas anthology from last year, Hope is Born. And the fun things about these, I wrote short stories for both of them. And one of them, the one in this one, is called The Caretaker's Christmas, and it's probably the most literary short story I wrote. Wow. So it was really fun to do something very different than what I'd done before. And the story I put in this one is called A Stranger Comes to Springlight, and is one of the silliest stories I have ever written in my life, with a lot of wordplay and ridiculous situations. So it's really fun to have been able to do that as part of an independent author, is just really go on opposite ends of where I usually am as a writer, you know, just to be really silly, and then also to just have this very touching story that's written in a more literary style. So yeah.
Well, I would think it would be good to just help you find your own voice too, and like writing shorter things and just trying new things. That's a great idea.
Yeah, getting to experiment a little bit. So
yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and experience with us today.
Oh, thank you, Terri. This has been
fun to see you. I've seen your name before, and I know we're both on ACFW, but that's such a huge group now.
It sure is.
Well, thank you so much. And again, everybody, come watch this video with Johnnie Alexander and buy her books.
Yes, please. Thank you, Terri, so much. It's been a lot of fun.
You're welcome. Thank you too. Oh, shoot.